Welcome to Confessions of a Restaurateur podcast, where we talk about London's hospitality scene.
Join us as we explore the highs and the lows of being a business operator in one of the busiest cities in the world.
Trying out new ventures and exploring the business of food. I'm Omar Shah.
And I'm Florence May, and welcome to this week's episode.
Hi guys, welcome to episode 3 of Confessions of a Restaurateur. Hi May, how you doing?
Hello Omar, I'm good, how are you?
Very good. Been a busy day.
Yeah.
You've been away the whole day, and I've had to handle all the redirection towards my end, so it's been rather busy.
I mean, I think that's the benefit of having two of us, isn't it?
Yes.
You know?
I'm gonna take my day off tomorrow.
Yeah, you can have
Take a couple days off tomorrow.
No, I was really busy actually out on locations today, so.
Yeah. So this episode, all right, a lot of people have been asking me specifically about how did you guys start, and that's such a wide question with a huge scope to talk about.
We get that question quite frequently.
I could talk about my second uncle's inspiration and my motivation when I was 12 years old on tacos in the streets of LA. But today, specifically, what they've wanted to ask about was location. How do you find your first property? What's the first steps in getting onto, not the property ladder, well, the restaurant property ladder? Mm-hmm. Okay, location is important, and location, a lot of people are kind of graduating from maybe home cooks and, supper clubs, from food stalls, and they want to know how to get a bricks and mortar out. Okay?
Let's do it.
I think we're going to start by saying, I'll put this disclaimer in, I am by no means a professional consultant in obtaining a location. This is just speaking from a perspective of, from an operative who's
personal
had
experience.
Personal journey where we've had a wide variety of different experiences. Okay. Yeah. So we want to kind of break this down into location. How do you pick the right location for your brand? How do you, the legal aspect of finding a property and the legal terms and the lease issues you might run into, and what to look out for. And then obviously your brand itself, does it fit within the location? And
let's kick it off then.
I would say location, let's kick it off by how.
Let's start with Kentish Town
And how let's look at it one by one, and talk about the differences we've had with different experiences,
because they are
in different
all
areas, and all very extreme. Well, they're all kind of,
they're the same but different.
Yeah, it gets very different at the end. So obviously Bintang's been there since 1987, and my father was in place, and my mom, all I remember from that experience is just going there as a kid after school, and they obviously got the landlord sorted out during that time. And it's just at this stage, very moment right now with Bintang, I'm actually dealing with the son of the landlord who my dad first dealt with.
That's actually quite nice.
Yeah. So there's a generational business transaction here where his dad was dealing with my dad, and now we deal with the lease together and the landlord and tenant responsibilities together. Yeah. So that's Bintang at the moment, and so I really, my experience right now with him is just ongoing, where if there's any issues with the tenants upstairs, I'll give him a call. If he needs to get an inspection done, he'll just let me know in advance. But, we have a mutual respect, and it's a healthy relationship, right? And I think that's one of the things where, we like to emphasize is making sure we have that healthy.
And in the industry, that would be called an independent landlord, someone that just, picks and chooses who they like. And sometimes that's how landlords do it. And I think, they really liked you and uncle.
Well, they like my dad. I know about me. I had no choice. He had no choice as well. So.
Well, I mean, now, I don't know if I should say his name, but our current landlord now likes you very much. So that's good.
Which one?
For Bintang.
Oh, for Bintang?
Yes.
Yeah, they're lovely. I love them as well. Yeah. They're really good people, especially when it comes to rent review. We love you a lot. All right, just remember that when we're negotiating. Okay, so
all landlords remember this for rent reviews.
Yeah. But a nearer experience we have obviously is Guanabana, which which was again a very similar situation. We have Ramo, where we...
Oh no, it was Mama Sons first.
Mama Sons, yeah. So before Ramo, there was Mama Sons, and there was a place right next door, the Bintang restaurant, that was always empty. And throughout the years, it's been empty, and tenants for a few months, been empty again, and tenants for a few months. And it came to the point where I thought, okay, you know what, I really want to take the space, because the type of tenant we usually got in there was a little bit scrupulous, and
yeah, and it kind of affected,
will impact the perception of Bintang. So
very strategic.
Yeah, and then when we decided we want to do something complimentary, for let's give this a go, let's jump on and see if we could reach out to the landlord. I actually saw him outside the shop locking up, and I'm like, excuse me, Mr. I'm going to say Mr. Smith for now. I would, I noticed your shop's empty. Do you mind if you gave me the opportunity to take it out and rent it from you? And he was like, well, yeah, right now it's available. And he's known me for a while. He's always known of me for a while. So we kind of see each other in the street, but I've never had any reason to liaise and speak with him for any reason. And but this time I saw him and we wanted the space, and he gave me the opportunity to kind of look around, and I presented an offer. And at that point, and this was 6-7 years ago, the rent I proposed, or where he proposed for me, felt like, oh wow, that's actually quite good. And obviously you don't take the first price and negotiate a little bit down, and it was low enough to just make it an office.
Yeah.
All right. And I think that's what we did in the beginning. We just made it an office.
And I think the key thing my advice to anybody speaking to independent landlords would be, just speak to them and let them know what your position is. And I think if they genuinely believe that, you have a good intention or a good vision for what you're trying to do, I think most independent landlords would want to work with you. So I think
that didn't work for me. Like, listen, I've been in the.
No, I mean, like, for us now,
what I mean,
they're very supportive.
Well, my way of getting around, or how it kind of grew in the beginning, is just I was in the neighborhood for so long. These guys see me grow up from a kid to a grown man, and
I think they were all fascinated. Well, like, what was the amazing thing? Like, I watched all these like handshake deals, like while Omar was actually shaking hands with the landlord making the deal. So I think what was interesting is that every time like a building went up for like opportunity to lease, you're the first person to call, because you had such a great representation for Bintang and Guanabana.
Yes. Well, but I don't entirely want to give that impression where they're just going to call you. And
no, they're not just going to call you, but you're so also part of the community.
Part of the community, and the fact that our family business has been there for so long.
Yeah,
they've seen me around the neighborhood. The ability to kind of like have that level of trust for them to say, okay, you know what, that's a footstep into the door, and it also, when it comes to like rent-free periods, especially if something's been closed for so long, please feel obliged, or don't feel no way about asking for a rent-free period. There's no skin off their nose, especially if you present a plan to them, like, we're here for the long term. And the fact that our family restaurant was being in there since 1987. I told him, like, yo, Mr. Smith, we've been here for a while. I've seen you've had tenants come in and come out, and I know they've been a headache for you. I promise you, we ask the landlord at the moment. There's been no trouble, and you've been a great tenant. I'll provide any references you have. Give me a period of rent free to allow me to build and make it work. And I can promise you, I'll be a great tenant for you for the long term.
And that's what I mean by like expressing your intentions to that independent landlord, because they will like take heed of like how you talk about your vision and how what you want to do with their space, because it's also their space. Yeah,
that was I probably had my reputation, or the fact that mostly my reputation to give me that competitive edge.
Yeah.
To have that conversation and to have that level of trust. But and that's in the point where maybe you don't have that, and you got to look around, and you got to look for a space, and you haven't built up a rapport already, or you're not known in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Then it's going to be a little bit more different, So I think when it comes to trying to find independent neighborhood landlords, I'll probably recommend, if this has been closed for a while, try and go to a land registry, find out who owns it, see if you get their contact details, write them an email or a letter, send a letter through the post, go and put it through the letterbox yourself, have it, and hopefully they'll contact you. Maybe ask the neighbors and say if anybody knows who the landlord is, and knock on the doors, and maybe the residents upstairs if you're going to find that kind of property. But in my case, I just so happened to see him outside. I was like, Mr. Smith, how you doing? Introduce myself. It's my place. Please, can I see your spot? And then he gave us a great deal.
He did.
He gave us a great deal, enough for us to sit on it and use it as an office, which I was very appreciative of, because my house was used as an office for a good few years, where my spare bedroom had my bookkeeper, graphic designer. My living room was basically the recce room, and everyone used to eat
all the
bit,
food out
of my fridge. And then after work shindigs, it just weren't healthy, man. So I was happy to kind of move out and use that as an office in a short period, but it kind of allowed us to sit in a space and think, okay, what are we going to do with it? Shall we, it wasn't any rush to create a concept for us to get a positive cash flow in order to pay the rent, because the rent wasn't that much. Can you do that now? I don't know. You'll find anything like that now. You find great opportunities. There might be little corners of London where you might see a shop close for a while, and the landlord might not be proactive enough to advertise or get out there. So, if you could get those kind of deals, it might be a good step in the direction of you practicing your concept.
Especially if you don't have any funding, or you don't have any resources like that. I think that is definitely good advice to start somewhere. Maybe that's a little bit hidden, like a hidden gem, and in a neighborhood, because they might just be a good place to start for a new brand.
Just make the landlord's make their life easier, and see if you can reach out. I mean, you're not dealing with agents. But that said, it came to the point when he gave us the lease, and lease was printed from it was just printed, download PDF from some sort of legal website. You could get those for like 15 quid.
I think that's what most independent landlords kind of go for.
Yeah.
Unless they're a multi-commercial.
It depends how much you want to involve legal fees, because you could run up to like $2,000 a deal plus.
It's expensive.
It gets expensive, and legal fees on both ends. So at that point, Mae decided, she mentioned earlier, it was a spit and handshake deal where we do have the legal documents, and we both signed it, and we talked about the lease terms, and it was all specified in the contract. But it was a very simple 3-page contract, and we just got it witnessed by the solicitor up the road, and he just stamped it. You paid him a $5, but
I think for me,
was done,
this was such it's funny you mentioned that, because I have a funny story to mention in a second. This is the first time for me that I was part of our lease signing, because obviously forgot about in Bintang. That was the BM, the before me era.
The first official time for me. Yeah.
Was that the first official time for you?
Official time, yeah.
Oh.
Because, the other time, my dad was involved, Bintang's family business. So this was my first kind of independent signing. And when I heard the solicitor fees, I'm like, fuck off, bro. I don't want to pay that kind of money just for them to look at me sign the document. We both agreed what we want to pay. But that's not advice, by the way. All right, that's not advice. So
when we went through that experience, I was in my head. I was going through my head, being like, "Oh, that wasn't so difficult, was it? Here we go. We have a shop." Yeah.
I mean, that's what we did with Ramo.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
We did that with Ramo. Again, it was this is
that for all the properties.
Yeah, but I'll give you another example about being proactive. If you find a space you like, and this Ramo Kentish Town Road was, particularly different because it was actually an operating business. Yes. I walked past it several times. These guys just renovated, and it was beautiful. And I wanted it. I thought, wow, that space is gorgeous. I really want to move into that. That would be, and I was already playing around with ramen and bintang. And I realized after doing ramen as special, it's just something I wanted to create in another restaurant. It doesn't work if you're mixing in ramen with you're making other dishes like noodles and curries. It just doesn't it's
too much of a pain.
Yeah, too much. You need a restaurant and a kitchen dedicated to ramen to make great ramen.
It didn't work.
Yeah, it needs to be a process, a production line, to make good ramen fast.
Yeah, but you actually had the idea for Ramo, I think 3 years prior to
that. Yeah, like I really wanted to open up a ramen restaurant. And then when I saw the space and the way it looked, I'm like, wow, yeah, this is, and it was just one block up from Vincent and Mama Son's.
You forced us to eat there like 3 times a week, just so that they would remember that we were
our
around.
faces, and we wanted to get to know the existing
That was
owners
a lot
and tenants.
of duck.
I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't busy for them. Fortunate for us.
Yeah.
That's just the name of the game. It's business. So when we did go there a few times, I introduced myself and I spoke to the owner and I got his number and I ate there a couple of times and we spoke freely and how's things and talked about my business up the road and what they need to do to drive. But I saw they weren't really getting the footfall of customers they needed to make it work. You could tell by, how empty it was a lot of times. So I, tactfully send them a message and say, hey, you know what? I really love what you're doing. I love your business. And if you ever think about, selling it on, please consider us. I don't want to disrespect you in any way. Just have me in the back of your head. And, I'm here when you're ready to go. And I left it at that. And then I got a response back saying, you know what? No.
Yeah.
Hard
no.
Yeah, hard no. We're not interested. And I'm like, yeah, okay. That's cool. So then we kind of like left it at that. I mean, they called me back maybe 6 months later.
I think about a year later.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, it was a good amount of time later.
Yeah.
I'm like, hold on. Like, oh, she should call me back. And they want to sell. And I made, they want to sell. I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me go take a look. Had that meeting, went to the spot. And we looked around, and this restaurant, like I want to tell you now, and what does cost a lot of money and soak up a lot of your initial capital expenditure and your budget is stuff like you can't even see. It's the wiring, it's the electricals, it's the plumbing, it's your ventilation, it's your fire alarm panels, it's everything that keeps you. It's the regulation, it's everything that you need to keep the restaurant open.
Yeah.
At the very foundation of keeping a restaurant open. All right. They already invested in that. So obviously there's a thing called a premium that's where the time we negotiate a premium. Mama Sons did not have a premium.
It was a show.
And a premium is a price you pay for goodwill, maybe fixtures and fittings. It's something you would, for example, if I were to buy the kebab shop down the road and it says Johnny's Kebabs, right? He would sell it to me maybe for like, say 50 grand. That's his value of his business, 50 grand. You're going to use my name. I build it up for 10 years. That's called the goodwill. Then you got my fixtures and fittings, my kebab machines, my fryers, my table, what have you, So there's that element. And sometimes, you would like to pay the goodwill and it makes sense because you don't have to invest your time and money to do so. If you were going to get to empty shell, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got to put that money in anyway. So at that point, what I would kind of like say if somebody's asking for goodwill or a premium, is usually going to be the tenant who's trying to get out of the lease. All right. And that's what she was trying to do. She was trying to get out of the lease.
Yeah.
Why?
And that
obviously,
happens.
and that happens. Maybe obviously business isn't running.
It's not what you expected.
Exactly, and then you have bills to pay, tax to pay, and everyone's kind of on top of you, and it just doesn't make sense. You'd rather just cash out and jet, and that's it.
Yeah.
So at that point, I realized, they quoted a price to me, and it wasn't right. Well, it was all right, but it wasn't right.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what? Oh, what do you want to pay, Omar? And I told my price. And I said, listen, I don't want to insult you. I know how much work you put into this space. It's incredible. I love it. I love what you've done. But at this moment in time is all I could afford to pay you. And she was like, oh, no, I can't do that. I'm like, well, that's it. Exactly. That's why I don't want to tell you my price.
Yeah.
So again, we parted ways. Another couple months later, she messaged me back, Omar, yes, let's do it. And at that point, I'm like, well, that's not the price no more. I can't do it like that. Because if you'd have told me then, I could have done it.
Yeah.
And then we kind of renegotiated and brought it down to a price where I could have moved forward fast. And then she needed to move fast.
Yeah.
So I was like, if you want me to move fast and get these papers signed, bada bing, bada boom, let's do it. But this is going to be the value of your premium. I paid it off. And where then the next layer of a deal like that will kind of open up is then you got to deal with an assignment of a lease. So she really has a lease with her landlord. She wasn't the landlord. She was the tenant.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the assignment of the lease, you speak to the landlord and whatever the lease terms are. If she's been there it's a 10-year lease and she's been there for 5 years, there's only 5 years of the lease. Then if the landlord gives her the permission, they can't withhold without any good reason. But if they give the permission to assign the lease, then I get the remainder of the lease and all the terms that are in there. So it's important to read what she signed and when you get an assignment in.
And I think with this deal in Kentish Town, it's quite different from the rest, even though it was still kind of a handshake deal. There was still a lot of processes there where I feel like you were right to hold off and stand your ground on your prices and your decisions. And I think, Ramo was such a concept that you had prior to that 3 years before, and having a concept that you were so passionate about. I could see it in your face that you really wanted it so badly, but were you going to pay that premium just to have it? And it was good that you kind of stuck it out. And even if we were this close for Ramo not even existing, you still stuck by it and you got the best. Because
there's other opportunities that will come about. Yeah. But this was a great space.
This one,
even the initial, the first price was probably fair, but in that climate during that time,
yeah,
I'm sure she went around to ask other people, would you want to? She couldn't find it. So whatever the market value is, the market value, what you're prepared to pay. They probably invested maybe 150 grand in renovating the whole space, but you get it for a fraction of price because you need to hop out and cut your losses.
And I think again, it comes with that in the neighborhood, we were kind of known to make our restaurants work despite them all being next to each other.
And that's what helped with the assignment of the lease. So the landlord was like, who are these tenants? What is their history? What reputation do they have? So. And
with that, bada bing, bada boom, we got Ramo.
Yeah, but we got obviously get your solicitors involved. When it comes to assignment, get them involved. And let's see what, just make sure that your I's and T's are crossed and dotted. I'm not a good reader and I didn't believe in legal advice for a while because of how much they pay. But a good lawyer, a good solicitor will actually save you money.
That's so true.
And I've had to over time learn that. So,
but moving on to the more different type of.
No, well, we haven't touched on Moi Moi, which is as well on Kentish Town Road.
Oh yes. Okay,
that was I'm gonna call him Mr.
Lee.
Mr. Lee.
Mr. Lee.
Okay. All right. Mr. Lee for Moi Moi was actually Moi Moi used to be a Chinese takeaway called Zing Zing. All right. They had several branches scattered around North London, and overnight they seemed pretty successful, but overnight they just closed down. The staff came in and they asked, they didn't know, but they closed down permanently and stuff. Like they came in to see us because do you know what's going on next door? The doors are locked. They've changed the keys. I'm like, I don't have a clue. And then in my mind, okay, it
very
looks
dramatic.
Yeah, very dramatic, and it looked like the landlord's gone and that's it, just shut shop. Anyway, I got the details of the tenant that he didn't do a runner. Some tenants do that. They'll run off and
not pay
3 months worth of rent, pay all maybe 2-3/4 of VAT and have a bunch of liability stuck, and they've just done a runner. They didn't do that. They obviously they decided to operate in another establishment. That space didn't make sense for them.
They just moved.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't inform their team though, or they did. I mean, I can't speak on that, but
people have many reasons.
There's many reasons.
Don't know why.
We don't know why. So
left.
then I proposed maybe a negotiation with him and decided to how long do you have of your lease? And he was just going to close it and pay off his rent in the meanwhile. And I said, well, let me buy it off you. And, at that point there was a lot of fryers and
it was already done.
Yeah, it was a quick service concept. And I really wanted to venture into the quick service concept because it's something I've never done with all casual dining restaurants. With quick service concept, I thought, we managed to negotiate. And then that was it. We got the price. Again, the same sort of negotiation. It took about a few weeks, but we got a price that worked for us.
Yeah.
And that's what forced us to create a variation of.
And plus, we just had too much property on the street already to let someone new come into the street.
But that landlord was already our landlord for Panadera.
Yes.
Yes. So listen, the timeline's all mixed up, but he already knew us. So he said, listen, guys, you know, I'll definitely assign a lease to you. You know, he even gave us little hints like, listen, you could get the premium for a lot cheaper. Just don't tell him I said that. Well, but anyway, we got the deal good, and then that's it. And that's why more. So let's move forward. All right.
Well, that's all of Kentish Town wrapped up.
Your neighborhood landlords, neighborhood tenants, spit handshake deals. If you know,
definitely a lot of charm and sweet
exactly.
talk. You need a lot of that.
It's getting around and going around and making sure you introduce yourself and just getting yourself out there. If you like a particular store or shop. Now, the big one, right?
The big fish.
The big fish is
it's the one that I probably get asked the most.
I'm gonna let you talk about this.
Yeah.
But I want to say my first part of this big one. There was a time when Mae comes running in and goes, oh my God, Omar. You know, guess who just called us? Guess who just called us and they want us to open up a Mama Son's in Chinatown. And I'm like, what? Wait, relax, man, relax. What are you talking about? They want us to open up a restaurant in Chinatown. And Mama Son's. And I'm like, who does? And the Shaftesbury, I never heard of them before, but they're one of the biggest landlords in central London.
Yeah. And
one of their brokers called. And I'm like, hold up, Mae, listen, I know why I don't trade in central London. Well, back then, it's because of the damn rents. So you have Mae's kind of, you know, naivety, but, you know, in terms of experience, and there's me like, you know, kind of like weathered and grumpy and like pessimistic, and there's her optimistic naivety. And she was like, no.
Well, I was 20, like, so definitely, yeah.
Exactly. So how much is the rent? She's like, oh yeah, 100 grand. And I'm like, what? Are you mad? I was getting a nosebleed just hearing that number. I'm like, what are you talking about? 100 grand? No way are we going to open up a business 100 grand rent a year. Listen, this was Kentish Town. This was the no-go area of Kentish Town because it was such a, you know, back then a rougher part of Kentish. It was, you know, the rents reflected that, and that allowed us, you know, but because of our marketing, we managed to make that a destination. That's another tip we could give you. All right. If you are going to find something a bit cheaper, put the work in to make people come to see you. All right. But a place like Chinatown or central London locations, the landlords know their worth. They know the footfall, and you won't have to put in that kind of investment or work to kind of. I mean, that was back then. You didn't have to, and that's why they would have that kind of.
Listen,
we didn't have marketing back then as we do now.
Of course.
It was like you put an ad in the Camden
Listen,
New
we
Journal.
We didn't have anything back then. It was just me and you, and that was it.
Yeah. So I mean, it was very, very, and I was very skeptical.
He was very. You know what? I won't ever forget this story either, because I think this is the first time we disagreed, and since, like, you know, we've been working together for nearly 10 years now together, and
we've had many disagreements. I can't recall since then what we've agreed on.
Yeah.
All right, but we've had many disagreements since then.
But this one was probably our first one.
And then. And I remember like saying, okay, you know what, let's just be rational about this. And I understand, we should do it. I'm like, hold on, there are businesses in central London and they are working. If they're working and they're operating and creating cash flow.
For me, I think Chinatown, Mama Son's Chinatown was probably the first project that I've worked on where I truly felt like, okay, this is another level. Like, you know, the way me and you scrutinized our numbers and we went through it. I think our first initial reaction together is because I'm so used to how we get property in Kentish Town. When you go, hey, Mae, like, there's this new property next to so-and-so. And me and you, like, high five and, like, kind of, like, plan it out in the middle of the night and bang it out with a new concept. And that's fun for us. We love doing that. So for me, when I got the call for Mama Son's Chinatown, and, you know, it was very quick, it was very instant. You know, they called me up and I answer, and that's a big reason why I answer every phone call I get. Like, because it could be an opportunity.
It could be an opportunity.
That's like my one rule. I don't care if it's a scam call or whatever. I'll answer every call.
Yeah, I get a call. I'm like, shit, why the fuck are you calling me, mate?
It's true.
How dare you call me? Listen, if you're a mate, text me, man. I'm doing, so.
No, but I'll answer because
May is extremely good at picking up the phone.
And I thought, they called and I said, hey, like, I didn't know who Shaftesbury was at the time or any landlord in central London. And I said, oh, I'm calling because there's this opportunity in Chinatown. And I'm thinking, God, I'm going to be taken for a ride today because there's no way they want us to be in Chinatown.
She came into Guanabana screaming and jumping like, oh my God. I mean,
so you weren't there. And
I remember you when you saw me.
So I went first. I said, let me try my chances. Let me just meet up with this person. It's just a coffee. I'll run away if there's anything weird because I was by myself and you think you were away somewhere. And I went to see it. I called you. I took a black cab home because I was so excited. I walked into the space and it was next to surgery, and I was such a big fan of surgery and Capucha. I used to go there all the time. And when I saw both these two brands, I was like, oh my God, we're going to be next to surgery and Capucha. And that's how I felt.
We love, like as we mentioned before, we love surgery.
Yeah.
And I used to go.
Like when I saw them, I knew.
I used to go to the Soho branch all the time.
Yeah.
And when you told me, okay, this is the plans they have for the street and they're trying to redevelop. And I remember Chinatown.
And that's just when I came back and I ran into Guanabana telling you about it.
And I'm like, okay, hold on. And then I was like, no, that's too expensive. I mean, you know what? I came to the point and said, you know what? If they're surviving there and they're making it work, selling ice cream or selling bubble tea.
No, first you gave me a really hard time about it. You were like,
of course I'm going to give you a time about it.
You were like, no way.
You want me to
like,
drop?
How could you agree to this?
Listen, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, if somebody comes up to you and says, you know what, can we drop 100 grand on this project?
You didn't even let me speak.
Give them a hard time. Please give them a hard time. All right?
Yes. I'm glad you gave me a hard time.
Of course, and I'm glad I gave you a hard time about, like, if I just bent down every time you said, can we just do it? Nah, mate, of course.
But didn't we do it?
Yeah, so this is what we need to do. I said, we'll do this, but let's do our numbers. If the numbers make sense, we'll do this. All right. So we went down there, went with a clicker, and we counted.
That's true.
We counted the business on that street and different businesses, and we counted how many customers they were coming in during different parts of the day. We calculated the average spend per head. We did the numbers, and from that cash flow, we understood it. We made a worst case scenario, an average scenario and best case scenario. And from the worst case scenario numbers, it made sense.
It made sense.
We were like, fuck, even if we just didn't do so well, we could still pay the rent. We could still pay the bills. We could still, and like, you know what? Let's do it.
And for me, like, the reason why I was so excited when we first got the call was because, I think we still do it now till this day, was when I saw surgery and I saw Capucha, like in either side of where Mum Sons is now, I just knew that, like, that brand alignment to having, surgery was like my favorite, like, dessert parlor that I frequently went to. And Capucha was something
my favorite dessert parlor.
And Capucha,
I took you to and became her favorite.
Didn't. That's such a lie.
I'm a London. This is my town.
No.
Right.
Anyway, and Capucha was something. Just because I answered the call, it's okay. It's okay. We did the numbers together.
Yokin was yours.
Okay, fine.
Surgery was mine.
No.
I used to take my mom there to that Soho.
Okay. But no.
Delicious, yeah.
Yeah, delicious. But Capucha as well, like, that was, I like.
Yeah, you were a massive bubble tea.
I had like Capucha nearly every day.
Yeah, she knew all the brands of Capucha from.
Yeah.
Jubu.
Yeah.
And
I just knew that was going to be right for us. Like, obviously with the numbers and everything else factored in, that was when I was like, Omar, I'll do anything for this site. I really will.
Yeah. And I'll be like, okay, let's do the numbers.
And I remember
the numbers make sense. We'll do it.
And after I said that, I remember we finally said, okay, I think let's take a look at the lease. And
then we took a look at the lease.
This is what one funny story was.
And then we got the lease from these landlords, right?
Yeah.
Holy shit, man.
They were 80 pages long.
I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the 90s, like, every household had a bookcase full of encyclopedias, like every range from A to Z. And the first one was Aardvark. And I think that's all I got up to, by the way, was Aardvark. After that, I just tapped out. But to tell like, this contract was one of those books, mate. It was this thick.
And this is my funny story about that. When we got the lease, and Omar said, okay, let's take a look at the lease. We did the numbers, like rough numbers. It might work. Let's see what the conditions are. And we got the lease, and it was 80 pages long. And the only reason why I remember how long it was is because you said to me, this is when you were being really hot on me. You were like, do you really want this space? Do you really want this, the Mama Sons to be here? And I said, yes. And he was like, okay, before we even ask solicitors, I want you to go through this 80-page lease and tell me why it's worth it. And I go, fuck. I can't believe it, but...
They give you... So there's the main points, which are called heads of terms.
Yeah. They're the pretty things that you need to do.
On one page, rent, lease length, rent review period.
Mm-hmm. Just the main points.
But then there's like
the lease, the serious stuff.
Which I don't even know what's on that stuff. I can't remember. I've gone through how many, and I don't know. And so this is where Mae read it, and this is where you get your money's worth from a solicitor, and you make sure.
But I'm still happy that you gave me that challenge, because I think now that was an advantage for me now, because when I do talk to our solicitor, because we ended up engaging in the end, because even though I read it, it's another language, you know?
It's another language. And it's actually points. Sometimes they miss out points.
They do. They
miss out points. And then because, you do your due diligence and you go for it, like, you go for it like your life dependent, especially if you're putting that kind of money, right?
And we had like,
say for example, the rent's like, let's give you, it's a ballpark, say 100 grand. Okay. But that's not the rent, guys. I won't tell you what the rent is, but it's high. All right. Say it's 100 grand. They need a 3-month rent. Is it 3 months or 6 months? 3 months.
Sometimes 3, sometimes 6.
100. Pulling out 30 grand out of nowhere. Well, you got to pull it out somewhere.
Then there's stamp duty.
And then you got to see that rent deposit. If your business succeeds, you'll never get it back. Because it's only you'll get it back when you leave. I mean, you could have terms on it, which we should have put in where after 5 years, we could get back a rent deposit or whatever. But you could, in hindsight, we should have done that. If we decide to leave in the future and we leave it in the right condition, there's no reason for them to keep any of our deposit. Yeah. And we get it back with interest if that's in the contract. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, you got to make sure that you read it, you have good legal advice and consult.
Yeah. I mean, we live in the world, like Omar loves to say, in the information world, where you could possibly search up anything and everything on Google. And that's exactly what I did. Anything I didn't understand, I was like, okay, I don't understand this one paragraph here. Let me take a look at it. And when it came to, our solicitors meeting, basically Omar sat in the corner and waited for me and my solicitor to talk if it was actually a good deal or not. And he basically got to read the heads of terms and say, yep, I like it. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. I read the heads of terms, but no way am I reading that lease word for word. No. And I skimmed through it, which was my due diligence. You were a layer of due diligence, and she was a very expensive layer.
No, I wanted to show you how much I wanted to do it. You didn't think I was going to do it. That's why I did it.
I don't think you're going to read a lease.
Yeah.
No, I mean...
Like the 80 pages.
You were going to read it.
I was going to read it.
Yeah, I know that. I don't have that much no faith in you.
But
all right, so so let's move on. All right, so now
we got the lease
and we opened up, and that's another story, another podcast altogether. So now you're in this world of like, this is the difference. This is the neighborhood kind of deals, and this is the big boys. You're in the big boy realm right now. You're dealing with the same tenants that Shaftesbury have are like Starbucks.
That kind of like a little bit gave me a bit of a
big global brands. There we were dealing with but you know what we love about the big kind of corporate brands like Shaftesbury at the moment, they have a division to take care of.
Oh, their support is
small
amazing.
Independents. I mean, they could get anyone in these locations, anyone they want, but they're very selective about who they chose and why they reached out to us. And at that time we were making a lot of noise with our concept Mama Sons, and we were quite popular on the social scene, and it got back to one of their brokers and how they really wanted. It would be great to have Mama Sons as part of the Chinatown fabric. So it was like they were curating the area and being selective.
That's exactly what they do. And I forgot to mention, like, before we got the lease, I call it our X Factor moment, you know? So, you know, it was kind of final stages. We were happy with the heads of terms. We were ready for this project. And I think the broker at the time said to me, actually, May, like, one last thing is the main people of Shaftesbury, which I won't say, want to come down to Kentish Town to try your products to see if it was right. And my heart was palpitating.
You guys see hard. I mean, back then it was a tiny little, like, 6-seater ice cream parlor, and we had these big dogs coming down. Like, it was like ice cream X Factor.
Yeah,
you know,
I call it that all the time. It was like X Factor. So we closed the whole shop for just the landlords to come, and I thought there was going to be 1 or 2. There was like 5 of them that came.
There was like a committee. And we were there explaining.
They were in full suits at the time. Or maybe I'm just like imagining that now, but they were definitely dressed up.
And
like,
they were tasting the ube and tasting the bill and the hala hala. I explained to them how to eat hala hala. Like,
I think me and you gave like the biggest performance of life that day. It was a pitch of a
lifetime, And
the thing about them was they didn't speak.
Yeah, I mean, they spoke.
They spoke to each other. And but when they spoke, it was like,
and then they left.
That was
they
good.
left. And
that was
like, what the fuck was that?
They didn't say if they liked it. They didn't say if they enjoyed it. They kind of looked at each other, gave the broker a little look as well. And I'm there looking at Omar being like, oh my God, what's going on? Why is this so tense?
But you all know what happened.
And they left. And I think that day when they left, I remember being severely upset because we went through that whole process.
We didn't like the energy. Like usually we could feel the energy and you feel like, okay, what? But then, you know, the
broker said to me, he's like, oh, you know what? That we'll be in touch. And I was like, we'll be in touch. That's like retail for we're breaking up or we didn't get it. And I'm like, we'll be in touch. I was like, oh no, it's not happening. I think I was upset for about 1 hour and I got an email saying, congratulations.
Great, like one.
And I think I ran back.
Congratulations, $100,000 a year, please.
And I think I ran back into Guanabana and screamed and told everybody that we got it. So that was nice. That was nice.
It was a really good. I mean, there was the build, but again, that's another podcast, another day. But let's bring it back to
the biggest.
The biggest. Well, not the biggest. Another big boy.
I think in terms of experience.
In terms of
experience,
like jumping through hoops.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Like
this was.
Yeah, we had a little committee coming out to try ice cream. You know, you go back to our landlords, it's just giving them a bit of a, you know, a bit of a charm, and then, you know, give them a little pitch about the neighborhood and how long you've been there for. Now you got Westfield. All right, and big boys to deal with, and like if we thought the 80-page lease for. So
the funny thing about this was after the whole Chinatown Shaftesbury experience, I was pretty chuffed at myself and how much I learned, and at the time we were also doing Ramo in Soho, which we'll talk about in a second, and that time we were doing 3 openings, and I think our game plan was like divide and conquer. So you were dealing with the Ramo and I was dealing with Westfield, and I was like, you know what, Omar, I got Westfield, I got this is easy, mate. After Shaftesbury, nothing else is gonna be in my way. And Omar was like, yeah, go for it, let me know how it goes, I'll see you when you get back. And that was it. And I remember taking my first meeting with Westfield, and I kid you not, I did not understand anything while I was there. I had my book out, I had my drawings out of how I wanted Westfield to look, and when they go, okay, it's time for us to go into the meeting room, I was like, oh God, this isn't the meeting.
No, mate, you're the big board.
Yeah, so they take me to a boardroom, and I'm absolutely shitting myself
she got her like color by number plan.
Yeah, because you know that's what we did for Chinatown, and I'm thinking, honestly, they probably had a great time seeing me like squirm. But I went into that room. And I got out my notebook and I wrote down everything I didn't understand, like the same way I tackled that lease. And it was like they were speaking in English, but you just didn't understand it. It wasn't even like code
it was
for retail or commercial. It was Westfield code.
You know what the difference was? Because there's a certain set of criteria you need to build in Westfield, and you know
they are so strict.
Their jargon, internal jargon for
So you had commercial jargon,
whole bunch of regulations. That we were proactive and very hands on in probably 90% of the building in Chinatown. So we kind of evolved how we did stuff in the neighborhood.
I think
we doubled down. But then come Westfield and
mate.
It's different. Like I couldn't show up with my DeWalt drill and start screwing planks of wood.
You need to tell at least 5 people if you want to get a screwdriver out. Like I'm telling you now, like it was a shocking and great experience for me, because how they operate was such a big learning curve for me, because it made sense why they did everything the way they did it. At the time, for me, I'm like, God, I know someone that could build me this and I won't have to go through all of this. But for them, it was, you know, you're not just coming in here as your own brand. You're coming into their brand, into Westfield itself. And you have to kind of follow their guidelines and their rules. And that's why, even though, you know, at the time I was very confident with my regulations or, you know, commercial jargon, they had a whole new level of jargon.
Yeah, rightly so. I mean, especially as we were going for a kiosk project. So you had the aspect of like, you can't just, again, show up in the middle of the floor and start building. No. There needs to be a set time, a set duration. You need to have, what's those things called again? With the paneling of the board. It's the first time I ever used that word, was the
hoarding.
The hoarding.
Hoarding
sounds like something you'll do for fun back in the early 1900s.
Yeah, I was there just to experience it. Hoarding
cost us like $6,000. All right. And that was just wood paneling to cover up the work, mate. And then
you had to do it.
And you need to go through the design process of hoarding and how would it look in the middle of the mall. And what design would we have on it? And, you know.
You know what? But it was probably for me one of the best experiences I've had, even though it was probably the most stressful experiences I've had.
Like after the build was done, obviously hoarding is thrown away. I wanted to keep this hoarding.
We did keep it.
We did keep it. We threw it away eventually. Like, no way am I going to throw away.
No, we kept 2 pieces of it from memory.
Did we? We still got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I didn't want to throw away any of it. $6,000. I'm like, no, for the next build, we'll do that. But you're never going to use it again, you know? And anyway, listen. This was the most expensive project we've ever done in our life, man. This just sucked up design time. It sucked up. We were there from
I was there from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. That was the Ramo soft launch. So you were in the kitchen.
I was in Ramo. So yeah, this was 2021, probably the hardest year of our life. 3 openings, right? We just got done opening Panadera, and that was another and then
that's another podcast.
Yeah, that's not. I've been Soho and Westfield. All right. I mean, I just every time we'll catch up over the phone, May and I, and I'm like, how much is it? What did that cost?
And it was
how much is going to cost us? And it just rolled, and it's nonstop. Like, we were pulling funds from anywhere we could, whatever. If Mama Sons or Ramo and Kentish or Guanabana was making a little bit more extra cash flow, we pulled it out just to pay for both of these projects that we're running.
I think it wasn't helpful as well, because the only reason why those 2 projects collided together was because of COVID,
yeah,
and the opportunity. So Ramo was such a great opportunity. It was one of those golden opportunities that I don't think we'll ever get again because of
No, we will get. Let's set it out to the universe. We're going to get.
Not with those terms, I'm telling you now.
They were great terms, but listen, we took the risk.
Yeah.
Man, it was COVID.
That's true.
No one was on the street. There's probably, 50% of commercial units are empty because people don't want to pay the rent. They've jumped out.
Yeah.
There was that loan that was given out by the government. Everyone took, a lot of people took it and fucked off and said, you know what, fuck this. I'm not coming back to open up an empty restaurant.
Yeah. And I think the reason why those terms were quite favorable as well is because there was kind of a history for that site not performing so well.
And it was COVID.
It was COVID.
Yeah. So we've had the performance history of previous tenants, in addition to, the world might end, but please rent this out because we're going to give you a good deal. And those 2 factors together, we decided, you know what, this is a good deal. We will bounce back. Things will normalize. We had this optimism about, you know, how things were going to turn out. And I mean, we didn't have the opportunity like we did for Chinatown to go visit the space. We were meant to go see the street. We saw the location, but it was a ghost town. You know, I couldn't go there with my clicker. How many people walking in and out of shops? You know, so.
And that's why all of them have been quite different.
They've all been very different to understand. Yeah. So now, like,
back to Westfield.
Yeah.
I think for me, this project was probably like an 8 months project, and it wasn't a project. It wasn't a way that I was used to working, because me and Omar have been so used to just get the property. All right, let's pick the paint color tonight. Let's pick the tiles tomorrow, and then boom, we're gonna build it tomorrow.
I must have been in and out of Leyland's. Leyland's is like a DIY store. At least 10 times a day in Soho. You can't do that for Westfield. And so just tell them about, so you need to engage with a certain...
I'm about to describe that now.
Please.
So with this project, so that's what I found out in this board meeting that I didn't understand. So they actually asked me in this board meeting saying, so who's your design team and your fit out crew? And in my head, I was like, me and Omar are going to design it. And they must have laughed their bloody heads off when I said that. Yeah. They kind of had a little smile, wrote it down.
That's what we've done all the time. Yeah. For
us, we've never had anyone design our place before. And then they were like, so who's your fit out team? And I was like, I'm not sure. Is there any requirements for fit out for doing it in Westfield? And they were like, well, yeah, you know, they need all these certifications, regulations, And straight away I knew it was basically not our fit out team. And they said at the end very kindly and politely, would you like us to recommend you a list of contractors and designers for you,
who have experience building on
Westfield? I didn't find that out till like the second meeting. So I contact all these. So they gave me a very concise list. What I'm not allowed to talk about what the list is. And they said basically these are our, recommendations. And after a few calls, I very quickly pieced it together why they were the recommendations. They were basically all the contractors that have worked on Westfield. Now, they're not saying you can't have your own contractor or your own design team. That's not ever worked for them. But they have a long test, is what I call it.
I gauge complexity by the thickness of paperwork.
Again, this was not a lease.
And then the lease was that big. All right, their regulation kind of requirements were about from this like at least a foot high, mate.
At that time, I was not reading those. I was like, no way. So after engaging with a few designers and realizing, hold on a minute, they all talk kind of similar. They all have, like jargons that I don't understand, and I have to kind of flick through all these pages to be like, okay, RD78, what the fuck I just say here? And then at that time, me giving that to, so I actually did reach out to a friend of ours who is a qualified designer that has a fit out team that could facilitate this project. And even he was like, May, go with the list.
Go with the list, yeah.
That list is gonna know
that we usually deal with.
Yeah,
they were intimidated and said, "Nah, we can't do this."
And I said, you know what? I managed to go through that list, and I actually picked out one of them who was really, understood our vision. They were great, and they really, really did a great job with Ramson. So that was really good. And for them, straight away when I called them and we engaged and I told them the project, they already possibly had the project done in like a week. And for me, that was like, my mind was blown, from like where you pick up the cup to how you put it in the bin.
They presented us a mood board.
It was insane.
With different textures and colors and like, the mood board, we had that mood. We felt,
yeah.
It evoked a mood in me that made me feel, this is cool. I felt like rubbing some of these things against my face. I really like the way it feels against my cheek.
They were like, what do you think about these textures? And what do you think about these colors together? And, what is your opinion? And I was like, damn, these guys did all the work for us, you know. Normally we would be in Leyland's for 4 hours and bringing like all the marble samples and whatever else with us and putting them together and touching it. But this time, you know, that's when I knew, you know, the way we worked, or again, it was another level up for me from Chinatown, having to liaise with someone like that.
I want to add again, it's very extremely pricey, and she likes to think she likes the way that works.
It's not that I like the way it works. Do you know what? Like,
I don't like the way that works.
I enjoy our small builds together because that's where I feel like we add most.
I don't like it either. I don't like nowadays. I like it's just stress, man. I did enjoy it. I'm hands in. Like,
I'm talking about when we enjoyed
my tools. I bring down my tools as well, and whatever. You know, I was burning wood for Shuggy Barn in Ramo for like 3 days straight. Man.
But I think that's why now, like, you know,
the reason why I don't like what you're about to say, because it comes with a hefty fucking price, mate. All right, but again, if you want to roll with the big boy,
let me rebuttal with you on that one. The reason why you don't like what I didn't even say is because
what you want to say
is because if you had to. And you had to pick a choice between reading a syllabus of regulations that you didn't even understand after you read it, would you not just trust someone, a professional, to tell you how it's going to work? And then on top of that, they are there to meet that deadline. So for example, it wasn't even that I wanted to go that route. It was, there's no choice but to go for that route. And with Westfield, they want a fast turnaround. Any of these big players they want it in 4 weeks. They want it in 2 months. And I think, okay, that kind of stuff is impossible with, like, you know, our little crew in Kentish Town, or even a more established, like, independent crew. But it is possible with a crew that has a factory in Poole, that has a CNC machine, that has like router templates online.
My boy is I'm gonna call him John Restaurateur, and he's been an ex-convict for 10 years. Or I'm gonna say Mark, my extremely like strong Polish builder. He was just gonna rip out anything and gut anything in like 5 minutes. All right. That crew don't work, mate. They don't.
No, it doesn't work. Not for that.
We don't wear high vis, you know. So. And
I think, you know, there's pros and cons to that. Like with Westfield, it wasn't because I wanted to do that. Trust me, like that process was still a massive learning curve. It was the only way to achieve a project like that.
Yes. So we have it there. Like, yes. If you wanna, if when you're playing on that game, when you're playing that game and you wanna play with the big boys,
and it also
places
saves us,
like Westfield.
Yeah.
Yes, it saves us time, but it costs. You need to have the money behind you.
You need to have the money.
I don't recommend jumping into your project unless you have, like a key.
No, I don't recommend going for a designer and a fit out team like that. If
it's your first business,
no,
100 no. If you don't have the cash
unless
flow,
it's Westfield,
and if you don't have the cash flow and the investment, hell no. You know. So just to wrap up that part, you know, May, there's a lot of consultants you had to deal with and pay for. Well, we had to pay for. Yeah. Right. You had to, you know, go check out prefab. You know, where did you go?
I went to Poole.
Go check out the factory that prefab the kiosk. And then
but you know what? They told me that it wasn't like often that clients went to check on it. So they were pretty surprised that I actually
but I mean that kind of, you know, that whole process of you get what you pay for in terms of the amount of headache you don't want to deal with. All right, but it's very expensive, and if you want to play that game and play with the big boys in a place like a super mall like Westfield, then I'm sure obviously there's going to be regulations in place to protect not only their reputation and brand, but the customers that come in and out of it every day. So yeah. That's it was expensive.
It was very, very expensive.
But we're going to do it again, hopefully.
We will 100% do it again.
All right, so let's talk about now the future and what we're prepared to do. Just funny enough that this has been scheduled in, but we went to go see a few properties over the last couple of days.
Yeah, and even the last few weeks. Actually.
Last few weeks, yeah. So what we've noticed is a lot of food stall handlers and a lot of maybe supper club operators are looking for a property and looking to kind of venture out and expand their brand. And our future growth plans for 2023, we're exploring, market stalls. It's almost like going backwards. And
I think a lot of people now, especially after how dining habits are a bit different from after COVID, is they want to go to a place that has variety. They might want to now have like a few bites and then party it up. Or
well, you got like over the last few years, you had the arcade, JKS market halls, that business model to take over a large space or create a large space with different vendors.
Yeah.
Where the public could come in and have a choice of starters. I'm gonna have some chicken satay. I might have a burger for my mains with a side of chapatis. And you could have that choice now with these new massive,
I love it.
Huge, they're great. And that's one of the things where, okay, is that going to be the food scene? You got 7 Dials as well. Is that the future scene of London dining? And that's something we reflected on and thought, you know what? It may look like a step back for what our growth kind of strategy initially was. Open up in Central, get the brand out there, get people to know the brand. But there are opportunities, in Stools. And
I think for me, anyway, the reason why a stall layout or format was interesting was because, we did the bricks and mortar sites and big projects and stuff like that. And after doing them consecutively for the last 5 years, I really just wanted to do something that was, a bit low risk.
Low level stress.
Yeah, low level stress.
Low risk, low level stress.
Something where I didn't need a designer. Something that we could knock out in 3 weeks.
And over time we've built up efficiencies that we're able to leverage. So as if you were an independent looking for a store, it would be a lot of work. No matter what, you open up a restaurant, it'll be a lot of work. There's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
You're still going to work 16 to 18 hours if you want to make it successful. Well, we explored the whole stall concept and diversified into there. We can leverage the food we already do now, the team we already have. It's easier for us to we don't need to operate that as possibly an independent.
Yeah. I think for us, this is more of a nice exercise to kick off our 2023.
We didn't do anything last 2022 in terms of openings, but what we're doubling down on right now is efficiencies and SOPs and operations,
and getting our brands out there as much as we can.
Yeah, one of these things that I'm obsessed about right now. We don't want to build on a house of cards.
No.
As much as 2022 was great for growth, 3 openings in 1 year. Again, it was the worst year of our lives, and that's 6 months after that. We're probably worst 6 months after. It's just once you finish building, you turn around and you go, holy shit,
I think also
fucking up, bad reviews, whatever, you got to fix this all up. All your plates which you previously spun are starting to drop once you build up 3 new plate spinning contraptions. And the goal is to keep everything spinning whilst we open up others. All we need to do is go back to that plate and just give it a little push and spin that. And this is the purpose of great systems and great kind of structures.
But we're definitely going to have a podcast on systems and operations.
Hell yeah, man. That's another talk for another day. But and that's given us the reason why right now, 2023, we wanna open up and explore 10x.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think for us, 2023 with these market halls concepts, it was an interesting one for me because we frequently get asked to do plenty of events. It could be anything, you name it, from Taste of London to pop-ups in what do you call that festival? The massive festival. Glastonbury or whatever, those things, and weddings and etc. And I always wonder, man, how do these guys just build their thing and get out of there as fast as possible?
The ones that succeed are the ones who manage to build efficiencies and treat that as a project which you need to create organizational structures in. I mean, I've seen the ones that come in, they
smash it, man.
You're after the same people who do really well, and your first experience in any sort of festival, it's like getting slapped with a wet fish all night, man. It is hard. I mean, after a heavy day of trade, you gotta pack up, clean up, roll out. You know what? I like a bricks and mortar. You know, I'm not gonna lie.
I like a bricks and mortar, but you know what? I just think it needs to be done. We need to explore all avenues.
Okay,
and
so we're just saying our stores are great right now and we are exploring it.
I think to test out any new concepts or to test out like maybe a spin-off of or a variation of an existing concept is...
Or to test out a new catchment without putting a massive amount of like capital expenditure and investment.
It is a great way to do that.
It's a way to test out and then get, it's brand awareness as well.
Yeah.
But you got to be very careful. You want to open up, you've established several brands in prestigious locations, and you go to some backstreet street market, for some store. I mean, unless it's part of your marketing strategy, like Cortez did with, selling their clothing.
Yeah.
All right.
In Shepherd's Bush Market.
That was genius, by the way. But unless it's part of that, then it kind of looks like, okay,
I think you need to look at
how's it helping your brand? This cash flow is one aspect, but how is it helping your brand and build that brand perception?
It's that brand alignment again.
And we're still having these debates,
all the time.
Great cash flow, but is it good for the brand? Is it good for us? Is it good, so how's it going to impact logistics? Do we need to hire another driver? Do we need, so it's whatever it's about for me, leverage and efficiencies. And that's how I'm very emotional about this right now. And we're going to talk about this another day.
You are, because we have to sign something off very soon.
Very soon. Do you want to say it now or no?
Nah,
we're not going to talk about it now, okay? But listen, it may be stall orientated, but we are looking at other bricks and mortars. There are opportunities out there, guys, and getting your name, getting your interest across, to as many agencies as possible. If you're going to go and, go, if it's a neighborhood joint, speak to the local kind of commercial estate agents. Like I said, write letters, knock on doors, whatever you want to do, find an opportunity, introduce yourself to the tenant, get your name, put your name, make sure you get your name and number in their phone, follow them on Instagram,
And if it's for your corporate, you want to get into something like with the Shaftesbury Group or something like Westfield, be prepared.
Have a great concept.
Maybe a press pack to introduce who you are formally.
Maybe proof of concept. Build up your social presence as you show that you have a following. All of this is
the more references you have for your brand and how it could be great for them. That's what they like to see.
Like we have a broker who showed off a lot of properties, and they look at our portfolio. Instagram is used as a way of presenting, your food, your concepts, or build on your socials as well. And even if you don't have a store, having showing your engagement with your core set of customers, showing the beautiful way you present your food,
Also a press pack really works. Make sure that's done nicely.
Yeah, press packs are important. Okay, so all of these together, depending on what your strategy is, guys, listen, this is not real advice. This is just our experience, but hopefully, there's some value in there that you could learn and take with you if you are deciding to find a location.
And if you liked this conversation of me and Omar talking about our locations and our advice and our personal experience, let us know what else you want us to talk about. We're going to be doing a lot of new things this year. So anything from maybe creating a concept, building a brand, anything about like your narrative marketing, on socials,
accounts,
anything,
whatever, so listen, guys, if you're thinking of opening up a new place, you have some ideas of what you want to get into, just comment below and let us know what you're thinking of, and hopefully any questions, ask us below, and then we'll hopefully get back to you and give you some answers that would help.
But thank you for listening.
Thank you.
We're going to wrap this up now because we actually got some work to do.
It's just, you know what? We do this at the end of our working day. So we got to plan tomorrow's work day. And please like, subscribe, comment.
And share.
Thank you. Abish.